works. Amen. I wonder if you might come on and go with me now to Joshua chapter 7. Joshua chapter 7, beginning at verse number 6. Joshua chapter 7, verse number 6, where we find these words written in the NIV again. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell face down to the ground before the ark of the Lord, remaining there till the evening. The elders of Israel did the same and sprinkled dust on their heads. And Joshua said, Alas, sovereign Lord, why did you ever bring this people across the Jordan to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us? If only we had been content to stay on the other side of Jordan. Pardon your servant, Lord. But what can I say now that Israel has been routed by its enemies? The Canaanites and the other people of the country will hear about this, and they will surround us and wipe out our name from the earth. What then will you do for your own great name? The Lord said to Joshua, Stand up. What are you doing down on your face? Israel has sinned. They have violated my covenant, which I commanded them to keep. They have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen. They have lied. They have put them with their own possessions. That's why the Israelites cannot stand against their enemies. They turn their backs and run because they have been made liable to destruction. And I will not be with you anymore unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction. We want to use as a subject this morning for just a few moments when stuff blocks your blessing. When stuff blocks your blessing. Joshua had just led the Israelites to victory over Jericho. Most of you have heard or read that story at one time or another in the 6th chapter of this very same book, of the army marching around the walls of Jericho. Read in the story about how Rahab had helped Joshua's spies get the drop on the Canaanite city. Then Joshua and his army brought destruction to the city of Jericho. And the famous line that all of us know is that, and the walls came tumbling down. But Israel's success was not because of Joshua's military genius, nor because of the army's warfaring skills. No, my brothers and sisters, victory came to Israel because Joshua and his people fully trusted God and obeyed God's commandments. So isn't it sad that the very next chapter begins with a loud and ominous but? Watch this, somebody. When a sentence begins with but, what follows is a detour. What follows is a change of venue. What follows is a dramatic reversal. And in this case, all of that was not for good. You see, before the Israelites invaded Jericho, God gave Joshua specific instructions. God told the Israelites that every living thing was to be put to death, and all the stuff belonging to the people of Jericho was to be dedicated to the Lord's treasury. No Israelite soldier was to help himself to any of the spoils. So as the leader of the Israelites, Joshua knew better than to question God and God's plans. And so Joshua went and gave those very specific same instructions to the entire army. And we are told that the whole army of Israel, the whole army of soldiers obeyed God. Except one. Achan. Achan sinned and took some of the wealth for himself. Now, for most of us in here, we would almost sympathize with Brother Achan, amen? After all, it was his lottery ticket to wealth. After all, it was his opus of opportunity. After all, it was his chance to receive something tangible for his devotion to Joshua and to the army. And it's not like he got greedy anyway. He only took a little bit of stuff. He didn't take a whole lot of stuff. He didn't get a whole wagon full. He just got what he could put under his arm and carry by himself. It was just a few items. And why not? Why not get something for yourself out of the deal? He had fought hard like everybody else. Why not get something for Achan? You might also want to say, well, wait a minute, Pastor, everybody else did the right thing. Wait. Well, everybody else did what God had ordered them to do. Joshua's soldiers deserve some credit for the discipline that the rest of them displayed, because only one of the soldiers gave in to the temptation. But this one soldier, y'all, did not escape God's notice in doing what he did. God saw Achan's sin when he took some of the devoted things that belonged to God, and the text said that God's anger was kindled, but not just against Achan, but against all of Israel. Turn, tell your neighbor, it only takes one to mess it up for everybody. Oh, I wish y'all would get that thing. Watch this. Like 3 points I get to make, and I'm going to get out of your way, because we got to get ready to go to Terre Haute this afternoon. Watch this. First, let's look at Achan's actions. The problem with Achan taking some of Jericho's wealth is that it was an act of disobedience. See, God requires obedience, and Achan gave him disobedience. It's a sin that too many of us in here are all too familiar with. Amen. God requires obedience, and we constantly give God disobedience and then wonder why we are not reaching those responses or those things that we wish we had in our life. You wondering why you're not getting blessed. Maybe you ought to backtrack and see how many times you've been disobedient unto. Ain't nobody gonna pray, that's all right. Because we let the pursuit of stuff get in the way of our own obedience. We allow the accumulation of stuff to take our focus off of God. I know I'm right about it, because watch this. God said, bring ye all the tithe into the storehouse, that there might be meat in my house. But we spend our tithes at the mall gathering up more stuff for our already overflowing closets, and then we shortchange God on Sunday. It's an Achan sin, church, when our stuff becomes our God. Oh, the people in the back don't like it when I talk about money. So let's put it another way. Watch this. Because your stuff does not have to be a pile of tangible items. Your stuff can be a club meeting. Your stuff can be a party. Your stuff can be a football game. Your stuff can be a chance to snag some extra overtime so you can buy more stuff. Come on now. And just so we are clear, your stuff is anything that takes your eyes and your heart off of God. And it doesn't even have to be anything. It can be your new boo thing. has rules for a reason, my brothers and sisters. His rules are meant to help our carnal flesh keep its focus. If all of God's children obeyed God's rules, imagine what the kingdom of God would look like. Imagine what God's church would look like. For God's church bank accounts would be full, and the house of God on Sunday morning would also be full. Secondly, look at the damage caused by Achan's actions. Poor Joshua was completely unaware of Achan's disobedience. And since Joshua had only experienced victories thus far as they marched throughout Canaan to claim the promised land, the possibility of a defeat was the most remote thing from his mind. He was on a roll with the Lord. He had been blessed better than blessed, and everybody around him had been blessed. Everywhere they went, they won. Everything they touched turned to gold. Every step they took led them to greater and higher blessings. And so for Joshua, he just assumed this was going to be another victory, another conquest. Ai was supposed to be easy. See, Ai was smaller than Jericho. Ai was at a strategic juncture between Jericho and Bethel, but Ai was supposed to be an easy victory. See, defeating Ai would mean that Joshua and the Israelites would have complete control of the route that ran north and south along the central highlands. Joshua was eager to press on and claim all of the promised land. I need y'all to get this, watch. See, they got to Jericho, but that wasn't the end of the march. Watch this, watch this, watch this. Sometimes we get a little bit of the way and think we done got all the way. Sometimes we win a few victories and think that we've got everything God had in store for us. Joshua understood that God intended for them to overtake the entire region. And so Joshua believed Ai was just going to be another step in the right direction. Joshua was eager to press on. He didn't know God was angry. And he had no reason to believe he would not be victorious in his battle against Ai because Joshua didn't know that Achan had taken God's stuff. Conversely, Achan on the other side didn't care that his actions got the whole of Israel's army in trouble. He didn't care that his stuff was going to cost Joshua his next victory. He didn't care because he didn't know they knew. Now, before you point a finger at Brother Achan and shake your head and suck your teeth and say shame on you, take a real good look at yourself. For the truth of the matter is all of us, all of mankind is sinful and selfish by nature. Yeah, we think our actions only affect us. Most of us don't stop to think about the effect our actions have on others around us. In fact, we really don't even care. I ain't gonna get no amen. So I said, we think it's my life and I'll just go on and do whatever I want to do. I know I'm right. Watch this. For example, we light up cigarettes in public places and for other people to breathe our lethal smoke into their lungs. And all of the cigarettes ain't right-handed cigarettes. Some of them are left-handed cigarettes that we light up in the house as if we don't know our children are asleep upstairs. But we don't really care. Watch this. We drink alcohol in front of our children until we can't get up off of the couch. And they see us in the same place, in the same clothes in the morning, and then wonder why when they grow up and become alcoholics themselves. could go on, but y'all get my point. Y'all got it. Our disobedient actions, church, have impact on others. They don't just hurt us, they hurt those around us. Verse 1 of our text does not say that Achan alone would suffer for his egregious act. It says, but the children of Israel committed a trespass in the accursed thing, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against the children of Israel. Turn to your other neighbor. See, I told you it only takes one. Let me turn this biblical account into a 21st century example. Watch this. The church can make some elaborate plans for ministry in the community, but it often only takes one to throw us off course. One person can ruin a church's reputation. One can thwart the public persona of the church. One can thwart the church's positive impact on the community. Just one of us can cause the wheels of spiritual progress to come to a grinding halt. And we all suffer because of the actions of one. Rules are for a reason. And disobedience gets in the way of God's plan for our lives. In Achan's case, watch this, Reverend Marcus, it cost the entire Israelite army its next battle. Poor Joshua. He sent 10 spies to case the land around the city of Ai. And they came back full of confidence. So much so that they told Joshua, look, brother Joshua, it ain't gonna take the whole army of 15,000, 20,000. Just send about 2,000 or 3,000 men to defeat the city of Ai. They only got a few men up there. We can take them easy. In actuality, Ai had 12,000 people and half of them was men, but for some reason, the spies didn't see everything. Come on now. Watch this, watch this. Sometimes, while you're so confident and think you see what you see, God has hidden half of it from you. You think you got it all figured out, but in reality, you only see it through a glass darkly. You only see part of the issue. You don't know what's really waiting on you on the other side. The men that Joshua sent came back and said, Joshua, we don't need to send the whole army. Ain't nobody over there. You can send the B team. You can clear off the bench and send all of them that we normally wouldn't put up front. Send the boys that don't never get to see action. Send the ones who ain't really confident. We don't need to fight really that hard. And Joshua thought he was riding the sure path to victory. And so he listened to the spies and he ignored God's command to take the whole army. And instead he only sent 3,000. And oh, what a mistake that was. For the Israelites got there and got beat up. In fact, at the very gate of Ai, they ended up turning around and running the other direction. They rushed back in terror down the steep path the spies had so confidently climbed that very same morning. And the text says that their pursuers, some of them, caught up with some of the boys at the stone quarry, and about 36 Israelites were killed, and the rest barely escaped with their lives. Yes, sir. Joshua did what most of us would have done. The crushing weight of responsibility was too great for him. So he blamed God for ruining his good name. Oh, don't go to sleep on me yet. Lord, why did you let this happen to me? What did I do to deserve something like this? How could you ruin my good name and my good standing in the community and among my people? Joshua never stopped to even bother to consider that the cause of his trouble might have been somewhere else, somewhere in his own camp. Instead, he blamed God for allowing the Amorites to overpower them. I didn't do anything wrong, God. It's your fault, Lord. So God had to show up in the midst of his pity party and get Joshua straight from what he was thinking. Now we come to the third and last point. Look at God's punishment for Achan's actions. I didn't include the dramatic ending of the story when I read the text because it's so long on details. And when you get a chance later, I really wish you'd go back and read chapter 6 and then chapter 7 in its entirety so that you might read an account of Achan's demise. But God told Joshua to rout out the trouble from the camp. Find out who did this accursed thing, Joshua. I know who did it, but I want you to find out. I want you to find out, and I want you to remove it from the camp. And Achan and all of his stuff, the end of the text says, was carried out of the camp, where they stoned him and then burned his body with all of the stuff that he stole. When you read the text, I'm sure you're going to be like me, because I was struck by the amount of stuff that Achan had stashed away. I'm like, surely God, he didn't take all of that. He didn't steal that much. See, in verse 21 of chapter 7, Achan tells Joshua what he stole from Jericho. He took a good Babylonian robe. He took 200 shekels of silver, and he took one single wedge of gold, about 50 shekels weight. Let's see, a shekel of silver in today's economy would be worth about 16 grams of silver, or about $34. So 200 shekels of silver would have valued about $6,800. Somebody said that's a lot. The 50 shekels of gold would have added up to considerably more, perhaps even double or triple that. In Israel's economy, shekels were what was used to barter for grain and clothing and weapons and farming tools and whatever else they needed to buy at the market. So Achan's stuff, he assumed, would set him up for life. It's amazing how little we'll take when God is trying to bless us with a whole lot. Come on now. Come on now. When we're left to think about it, we think, ooh, that's a lot. But in reality, it's nothing when you add up what God is trying to give you. See, Achan thought his stuff would set him up for life. But herein lies Achan's terrible sin. He let his mind convince him that, and his heart, that he would no longer have to rely on God for his substance if he would just take this little bit of stuff. With all the stuff he stole, he thought he would be able to manage his own life from here on out. Watch this, somebody. He stole from God so that he could live without God. That's why Jesus said it's hard for a rich man to get into heaven. Our carnal flesh has trouble reconciling stuff with salvation. The flesh tells us that stuff is more important, that we can assure our own salvation, at least in this life, if we just had enough stuff. The important thing to remember here is that God's rules are for a reason, and breaking them can lead to our own demise. We think we're getting away with something when we disobey God. When we stash away the bulk of God's blessings for ourselves, we think we got away with something. When we refuse God his tithe, we think we've gotten away with something. When we close our tight fist and say we have nothing to give, we think we got away with something. When we make excuses for our tardiness from church on Sunday morning, or our complete absence for weeks and weeks at a time, we think we got away with something. When we display a lack of interest in serving God with our talent and our gifts, we think we got away with something. But God sees and God knows, and God has a plan of his own. So if you are aching to be an Achan, you better think twice. Come on, son. Come on, son. I don't want to be caught. I don't know about you, but exchanging salvation for stuff sounds foolish to me. Don't steal some fleeting pleasures and lose the greatest treasure of your life. For God has designed it so that you and I might have a life in Christ, through Christ, and an eternal life in Christ. Don't be a God robber, when instead you can be a joint heir with Christ. You can be more than a conqueror if you just trust God. You can be victorious over temptation if you just let God be in charge. You can be clothed not in some Babylonian garment, but you can be clothed in righteousness. You can be sheltered in the arms of the Lord. You can be filled with unspeakable joy. You can be the recipient of God's mercy and God's grace. You can walk in the light and live in the light and flourish in the light of Christ's love. All God asks you for is obedience. So don't let stuff block your blessings. Don't let stuff get in your way. Don't let stuff turn your head away from your salvation and make you think that you can just get there by yourself. Watch this, somebody. You and I can't get into heaven without God on our side. We can't get holy enough. We can't get righteous enough. No matter how much stuff you own, no matter how much stuff you buy, you will still come up short because you need Jesus on your side. You may have had victories. You may have gained some stuff in your life. You may have been climbing up the corporate ladder, but don't forget that you still need God in your corner. So be careful that you don't develop an Achan philosophy and think, I'll just use the stuff that belongs to God, the dedicated stuff, to further my own career and my own altitude, and think you're going to get away. You've been blessed a little bit. God has shown you what he can do if you just trust him. Don't make him show you what he will do because of your disobedience. Joshua thought the next battle was just going to be another victory. They went in light because they were sure they were going to win. But not only did they lose, they got a public whooping out of the whole ordeal. All of this time they had beat down armies. Now they were getting beat up themselves. And Joshua said it best, Lord, what we gonna do now? Because everybody gonna figure out that we just got beat, that we got a whooping. They about to show up and surround us. And if they surround us, they gonna beat us. And I am at a point of dismay. Joshua went out in the yard and laid down on the ground, and him and the elders began to heap dust upon their heads. And they began to cry with a loud voice, "Oh Lord, where are you now? God, why don't you show up and show out? God, you said joy would come in the morning. Lord, you said if we just trust you, you'd bring us through. Lord, you said in your word that if we would just believe in you, you would be with us and never leave us nor forsake us. Where you at, God, in our time of trouble?" And God showed up in the midst of their sanctified pity party and said, "Joshua, what are you doing laying in the dirt? Why do you have your face cast down? I know what I said. I know what I promised. But what I said to you is that you got to follow my word." You thought you had gotten away. You thought you had made it. But you did not check and make sure everything was on the up and up. So here's what you got to do. Call all of Israel together and go tribe by tribe. I'll show you which tribe the benefactor is in. And when you get to the tribe, go family by family, and I'll show you which family the thief is in. And when you get to the family, go person by person, and I'll show you exactly which one it was. And when he got to Achan, God said, "That's him, right there, fourth row from the front, in the center of his pew. That's him. He's the one. Go ahead, take him out of the camp, for he did not trust me. Take him away from the army, for he did not follow my direction." Now the rest of you can go forth in victory. Now the rest of you are right where you need to be. I'll bless you again. I'll cover you again. But make sure the army knows it only takes one to mess up everybody's blessing. So the next time you see one of the members of your army doing something wrong, you won't wink at it, but you'll lean over and tell them, "Don't you do that. You about to mess up my blessing. You about to mess up my victory. You about to mess up everybody's progress. And I'm not going to laugh with you at your jokes. I'm not going to snicker with you at your sinfulness, because we all in this thing together. And I ain't going to let God get mad at all of us because of one Achan in the midst of the crowd. Don't take what belongs to God. Don't misuse what's been dedicated to him. You want your blessings? You want everybody else to be blessed? Then you've got to be willing to trust God with your stuff. Can I give you one last anecdote? Watch this. The stuff didn't even help Achan. See, he knew he was wrong. Because Sister Cecilia, he took this stuff back to the camp, dug a hole inside his tent, and put the beautiful robe that he had wrapped the silver and the gold in the dirt. Covered it all back up and thought he'd just sit on it a while and wouldn't nobody know. Then comes chapter 7, and it begins with a very loud but. For a while he had gotten away and passed Joshua, he did not get past God. When stuff blocks your blessings. Let us stand.